Have you ever wondered how people built these incredible Gilded Age mansions before power tools? A lot of you have asked me over the years, how did they build these mansions with horses and buggies? Well, the answer is a bit more complicated than that, but also incredibly fascinating. Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit that subscribe button and let's uncover how they built this house. This video is brought to you in part by Victorian society in America. More on them later. Long before the whir of a circular saw or the bark of a nail gun echoed across a job site, American builders raised some of the most elaborate houses the nation has ever seen. From the hulking granite piles of the Gilded Age to the gingerbread trim confections of Victorian main streets, every joint, carving, and cornice was the work of muscle, ingenuity, and patient skill. Power came from windlass, horse, steam, and most of all, human hands. A mansion story typically began miles away, where lime was burned for mortar, iron was smelted for hardware, and forest fell beneath the bite of crosscut saws. Timber crews felled giant white pines or live oaks with axe and two-man saw, squared the logs with broadaxes, and skidded them by horse or ox to rivers, before they were eventually loaded onto trains and carried across the country on an intricate web of rail spurs. Stone left quarries and rough blocks, each marked in chalk so masons on site knew which face to finish. Railroads were the great equalizer. By the 1870s, a private siding could deliver 20-ton marble columns to an isolated estate. Where tracks stopped, wagons began. Iron shod wheels creaked under slabs so heavy that teams of dozens of horses moved at a walk. In winter, builders sometimes waited for hard freezes. Stone that challenged wagon axles in mud glided over snow-packed roads on wooden sledges. And in extreme cases, roads were laid out ahead of time, though I digress, those actually were built by horse and buggy. On site, the first machines were simple, inclined planes, rollers, and capstans, fully utilizing physics to an advantage. Picture a limestone block bigger than a freezer, inching along greased timber rails, pried forward by crowbars while laborers slid new rollers beneath like a conveyor belt in slow motion. For vertical work, derricks, a tripod of timbers tied with iron dogs, formed makeshift cranes. A gin pole rising above the foundation could hoist beams 3 stories high using a block and tackle rig turned by men walking inside a wooden treadwheel or by horses circling a capstan. Even so, heavy lifting grew safer and faster as the century wore on. By the 1880s, portable steam engines powered hoists at high-budget jobs such as the Vanderbilt family's The Breakers in Newport, Rhode Island, or perhaps more famously, their Biltmore estate in North Carolina. Yet those engines only turned the ropes. Riggers still signaled by hand, and a misplaced sling could crack a block no modern forklift could save. Because every nail was driven by arm and hammer, timber framing had to be deliberate. In thousand-acre forests, sawyers quartered logs and sent them to distant mills where circular and gang saws, steam-driven but hardly portable power tools, turned trunks into framing members. Back on site, carpenters laid out full-scale templates on lofting floors, then cut posts and beams with handsaws and chisels, finishing joints so tight they needed no metal fastener at all. A single mortise and tenon on scarf joint could take hours, but once drawn together with oak pegs, it would hold for centuries. In towns and smaller farmhouses, balloon framing arrived after the Civil War, using abundant machine-cut nails and lighter studs. Yet in mansions, the old heavy timbercraft lingered, partly for strength and partly for prestige. Victorian exuberance demanded miles of decorative woodwork. While small ash mills could crank out basic moldings, the highest-end pieces were carved in place. Picture a porch bracket, first roughed out with a turning saw, then refined with gouges until ferns and acanthus leaves curl as naturally as in a garden. Inside, parquet floors were laid piece by piece, each tongue cut with a handheld plane. Plasterers free-handed ceiling medallions from wet lime, like chefs piping icing on a cake. Stone carving was slower still. A block destined to be a gargoyle might sit on a banker's bench for weeks. Carvers used mallet and chisel sets to coax form from granite, measuring constantly with calipers and string lines. When you see a row of identical Corinthian capitals on a Gilded Age facade, remember each acanthus leaf was cut separately. The trick was training dozens of men to carve identical individuality. Before we hop into the logistics of building these homes, a quick word about the sponsor of today's video, Victorian Society in America. Are you captivated by historic architecture? Want to explore, learn, and dive even deeper into the past? With the Victorian Society in America, you'll have the chance to travel to American cities and tour stunning 19th century buildings. Pursue learning through internationally acclaimed summer programs in American cities and abroad, including Chicago, Newport, and London to name a few. Additionally, members will enjoy a free subscription to 19th Century, the semi-annual publication packed with articles on art, architecture, preservation awards, and book reviews. Visit the website below in the video description and become part of the Victorian Society in America today. Thank you, Victorian Society in America, for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to it. Because there were no electric lights, workdays rose and set with the sun, but job sites never slept. Night watchmen patrolled scaffolding to shoo away curiosity seekers who might pocket loose brass hinge plates. Blacksmith forges glowed before dawn, sharpening chisels blunted the day before. Sawhorses filled lawns like livestock pens, while kilns at the rear of the property kept lime slacking so fresh batches of plaster would be ready each morning. Communication was face-to-face or by chalkboard. The site foreman tallied deliveries on a slate. A misplaced note could leave 40 masons idle while someone chased a wagon that took a wrong fork 10 miles back. For all their grandeur, many mansions came together under what amounts to organized chaos, held in check by strict craft guild hierarchies and the foreman's booming voice. There were no OSHA harnesses to protect steeplejacks sawing cornices 80 feet up. Instead, they trusted hemp ropes, plank scaffolds, and habit. Never step backwards without looking, and keep your tools tied to a loop. Accidents happened, but surprisingly few, thanks to apprenticeships that instilled caution as deeply as skill. A stone carver could tell by vibration whether his mallet too closely matched the natural fault in marble, a life-saving intuition when a 100-pound fragment might shear off. Clients with limitless budgets sometimes changed their mind mid-build. Workers joked that the only thing money couldn't speed up was lime curing. Mortars still needed months to reach full strength, no matter how many men you hired. Walk into any surviving Victorian or Gilded Age mansion, and you stand amid the accumulated gesture of thousands of hammer swings and saw strokes. Before electricity, building was choreography, wagons rumbling in, derricks creaking skyward, chisels ticking in stone like metronomes. Each mansion rose not from power tools, but from a power of coordination and craft nearly unimaginable today. And yet the result is often sturdier, more intricate, and more expressive than anything produced in an age of cordless drills and prefab trusses. So next time you gaze at a turreted roofline or run your fingers across a fluted newel post, remember the unseen procession that brought it into being. Behind the ornament is endurance, of forest felled tree by tree, of stone coaxed into grace by blunt steel, of human hands collaborating long before electricity gave us speed. Those hands left stories in every peg and plane stroke, stories that still hold houses together and still hold our attention, even a world humming with motors. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments section. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to Victorian Society in America for sponsoring this video. Check out their link in the video description to find out how you can get involved today. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time on This House.